Arousal, Anxiety and Stress, Assignment 3.3 by Samuel Marsh. Arousal, as per Weinberg and Gold in 2011, is a general physiological and psychological activation varying on a continuum from deep sleep to incitement. It is believed to be the degree of emotional energy that the body perceives during different situations, a changing state. It can be split into two elements, cognitive arousal and somatic arousal. Cognitive arousal, according to Sean Penton's Sports Psychology on Monday the 17th of March 2014, is concerned with the thought process, such as worry and fear. This relates to how the body changes when aroused psychologically, such as worry and negative thought, whereas somatic anxiety is the sympathetic nervous system's response to stress, such as an increase in heart rate and sweating. Arousal can be both positive and negative when it is associated with sport. In sports such as rugby, having a high arousal will allow the release of adrenaline into the system from the hypothalamus, allowing the muscles to work at a higher intensity for a longer period of time due to an increase in heart rate, allowing tackles to be performed with the highest power and technique possible, providing your team to gain with a competitive advantage to gain the ball back. However, if the body becomes over-aroused, the rugby player may become extremely angry, losing all technique and instead seeking to use hostile aggression to hurt the opponent, potentially causing the player to be sent off and hinder the team's performance. The drive theory, suggested by Hull in 1943 and Spence in 1966, can explain how arousal can benefit us in our sporting performance. It suggests that as arousal increases, performance level is increased. According to Revision World, it demonstrates a proportional linear relationship between arousal and performance, in which the skill of the performer and personality of the performer influences the extent of the arousal increasing performance. For example, the quality of the performer depends on how well the particular skill has been learnt from teachings. A cognitive beginner will struggle to recreate a skill, especially under pressure, due to the lack of ability and pressure of performing well in front of a crowd. They won't know what to do and will feel the hindering pressure get to them from over-arousal, making them revert back to their initial response. This can be seen in the kick-up experiment we conducted in class, in which the students produced less kick-ups of a football whilst being shouted at than when they were not being shouted at, due to an increase in intensity of the situation and also the lack of skill. It caused them to get over-aroused and perform badly as their dominant response was not developed and came through. This idea challenges the drive theory. Beginners need cues and signals to perform the right skills as the arousal increases. They have less attention towards these cues, meaning they lose concentration. Skilled footballers would not have felt this pressure as they have a high skill and they can know they can complete the kick-up action regardless of the pressure. As with the training they have received, it is almost like a basic skill, and their dominant response of being able to do kick-ups consistently would have occurred. They will want to perform well as pressure and arousal increase, so they can show off and perform to the highest level during big-time situations, which supports the drive theory. Footballers such as Messi perform excellently regardless of the situation. He is the best football player in the world and can complete as many kick-ups as he likes due to his extremely high skill and want to succeed in front of a crowd. The bigger the occasion gets, the better he plays, supporting the idea that as arousal increases, sporting performance increases. In the Champions League final against Manchester United in 2009, Messi scored a goal and asserted himself as one of the best players on the pitch. He wanted to play the best so he could in the momentous occasion, showing that as arousal exposed to him increased, so did his performance, supporting the drive theory. Furthermore, on another example, a tennis player may learn a correct serving technique, yet when it comes to performing it in a game, the performer may fail. If the first serve hits the net, their arousal and pressure may have a negative effect on them and cause them to hit the net again, causing a foul serve, and giving the opponent the point. This shows that as arousal increases, an athlete may revert back to their original poor serve, as their mind cannot concentrate on the task at hand. Despite Messi and numerous tennis players supporting this theory, a criticism of it is that it doesn't explain why many professional athletes perform badly under immense pressure. Chelsea captain John Terry missed a penalty in the Champions League final to win his boyhood team the best trophy a footballing team can achieve. The pressure of the occasion got to him, over-arousing him, meaning he slipped and missed the penalty in front of millions watching, in which they lost the shootout because of his miss. According to the drive theory, if performance increases alongside arousal, then his penalty should have been perfect due to the immense pressure and the arousal he experienced. However, he missed, showing it doesn't take into account a potential over and under aroused situation which can decrease performance. The inverted U theory, created by Yerkes and Dodson in 1908, according to P Arousal blogspot on Sunday the 4th of September 2011, is a theory of arousal that considers the optimal performance when the performer reaches an optimal level of arousal. It suggests that, like the drive theory, performance will increase alongside arousal, being based on the individual's skill and personality type. If they are a cognitive performer, they are likely to fail under pressure due to their lack of skill and miscues, whereas experienced performers are likely to find the action natural due to being trained on it for a sustained period of time and it becoming their dominant response. However, it will reach a point in arousal where performance is optimal, and anything over that point will cause performance to decrease as arousal increases. If the performer is an extrovert, they are likely to react positively to the increase in arousal and pressure, as they will be inclined to show off and show how great they are, in comparison to introverts who potentially may react differently, struggling under pressure as everyone will be watching them and expecting them to complete the action of the utmost quality. The first section, located on the left of the diagram within the inverted U, is the low arousal pressure, low performance area. In this area, concentration is limited as the performer isn't very aroused by the situation and therefore will not concentrate as much due to their lack of care. The player may appear to be daydreaming, such as where footballers may wander around the pitch when they are off the ball and don't care about what their teammates are doing. The process of selective attention cannot operate as they become more ignorant and less aroused to their stimulus within the sport, meaning their performance will massively be hindered as they practically are not receiving enough pressure/stimulation to perform well. However, this area may be beneficial to some sport performers. Ronnie O'Sullivan may operate best in this area during a match of snooker, as if he were to get over-aroused, then his fine movements may become gross and overstimulated due to the arousal, and he may begin to miss shots, costing him the game. The area of best performance is called the optimal arousal zone and is located in the shaded white square on the diagram. In this area, it is the perfect state for optimal performance. It is maximized as the body is perfectly aroused by the direct external environment, where concentration towards the action is high, due to the want to succeed and impress. As the performers have a high concentration, the important information given to the performer via the external and internal stimuli can be digested by the brain and produce an accurate performance-benefiting action. As selective attention occurs, the performance takes on board the most relevant cues and information. This only occurs in the optimal point of arousal and is known as cue utilization. This can be seen in tennis, where Andy Murray has to have peak flow experience in order to react to the shots being hit at him, allowing the best possible return, whether it's forehand, backhand, or spin shot. Once he begins to get angry and over-aroused from the crowd and pressure of the situation, his performance gets worse. Supporting the inverted U theory is when arousal increases past the optimal arousal zone, performance deteriorates. In this zone, the performer is over-aroused, meaning the field of attention is extremely narrow and focuses on one thing rather than the wider picture. They miss many external cues due to their extreme concentration on individual action in which potentially could hinder their team's performance or individual performance. This level of stress is known as hypervigilance. Over-arousal can be positive, however, such as in rugby where Owen Farrell, professional rugby union player, may be over-aroused due to a player taunting him, and as a result can channel this through assertive aggression to perform the gross movement of an excellent rugby tackle. Chelsea captain John Terry missed a penalty in the Champions League final. The pressure of the occasion got to him, over-arousing him, meaning he slipped and missed the penalty in front of millions watching, in which they lost the shootout. The capacity of his concentration was impeded as a result. He missed. This means that the cue utilization hypothesis can support the inverted U theory as to how optimal arousal can benefit performance by allowing the correct cues to be digested and outputted through correct sporting movement. Despite this theory explaining the increase and decrease in performance alongside arousal very well, it does ignore that it is extremely unlikely that one will have a smooth dip in decline once in performance as arousal increases. It is likely that a performer will experience a sharp drop in performance if both somatic and cognitive arousal is high, as they will have lost attention towards the wider game they are playing and focus on an individual aspect, causing them to focus and stress too much about it, decreasing performance. Another criticism is that the curve doesn't take into account where low arousal and high arousal can be beneficial in different sports, suggesting all sport performances in every sport is best whilst in the optimal arousal zone, Those playing golf may have maximal performance during the low arousal, where they are not to feel anxiety from the external stimuli and make the shot. The catastrophe theory, as per Hardy and Frazee in 1987, according to P. Arousal blogspot on Sunday the 4th of September 2011, states that the catastrophe theory is a development of the inverted U theory, in which describes how athletes can experience a sudden decline in performance after a catastrophe, something the inverted U theory was not able to demonstrate. It claims performance experience a gradual decline rather than an instant stop. However, in the catastrophe theory, it shows that performance have an instant drop after a sudden bad experience rather than a gradual one. This occurs when the performer experiences a combination of over-arousal of cognitive arousal and somatic arousal, making their performance overly stressful and decreasing performance as they will revert back to their original mistake-ridden action. This can be demonstrated via tennis. Tennis serves, that is. Point A, the optimum point of arousal. Point A is the optimum point of arousal. In this zone, cognitive anxiety and arousal are both high, allowing performance to be of the highest quality. However, if somatic arousal and anxiety are attributed to the situation, increase in heart rate, breathing rate, sweating, then it may cause the performer to tip over the edge into an extreme decline to point B. In point B, both cognitive and somatic arousal is high, meaning that performance may enter a blind panic as they will not know how to react to the external stimulus as they have a catastrophe. If the performer continues to have a crisis, then their performance will continue to decrease to point C. The performer will be exposed to over-arousal in both somatic and cognitive anxiety, and as a result, performance will decrease due to their narrow mindset and miss of some external cues. However, despite previous theories discussing the idea that a performer cannot get back into optimal arousal once they reach point C, the catastrophe theory discusses the idea that a performer can decrease arousal by using anxiety management techniques. This allows them to follow the path up to point D. It doesn't immediately go back to optimal arousal due to their motivation and self-confidence being knocked down due to the catastrophe, but can be built back up to allow optimal performance. During the London 2012 Olympics, Sun Yang had a full start due to his somatic and cognitive arousal being so high. He was so worried and focused on his start he dived in early when he thought the gun was going to sound. This full start was a catastrophe, yet he managed to win the race in the second attempt. He performed anxiety management techniques, allowing him to revert back to his original state before the 1,500 metre freestyle event occurred. Common anxiety and stress relieving techniques can be deep breathing, counting to 10, focusing on positive aspects of performance, etc., etc. He believed and was aroused by the environment, allowing him to focus on performance, allowing him to perform in the optimal performance zone and win the race. Another similar occurrence is Mo Farah. During the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, Farah fell over in the 10,000 metre endurance running race and found himself towards the back end of the running group. This was his catastrophe, as it looked almost impossible for him to recover and win anything. However, he channeled his thoughts and focused on his performance, allowing him to recover back to the optimal arousal and win the race, against all odds. Overall, this theory explores how an athlete can experience hindering actions within their performance, but also discuss how they can recover from them, thus enabling it to have little to no criticisms whatsoever.